The grocery store was unusually quiet that night. The soft hum of fluorescent lights buzzed above the near-empty aisles, and the faint smell of detergent and stale bread floated in the air. It was almost closing time. A weary man, his shoulders heavy with fatigue, shuffled slowly toward the checkout counter. In his arms was a single pack of diapers, clutched as though it were the most valuable thing in the world. His name was Daniel Carter, a once dreaming young man whose life had taken an unexpected turn. Once he had plans of becoming an architect, sketching grand designs for cities, but dreams didn't put food on the table. And when his wife passed away suddenly after childbirth, reality hit him like a crashing wave. He became a single dad overnight, with no savings, no support system, and a tiny baby girl who depended entirely on him. That night, Daniel wasn't thinking about dreams. He was thinking about survival. His wallet held exactly one crumpled dollar bill, the last of what remained after weeks of scraping by. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days, but diapers for his daughter were non-negotiable. As he stepped up to the counter, he placed the diapers down carefully, as if handling treasure. His eyes avoided the cashiers. He prayed silently that no price increase or mistake would reveal the truth, that he didn't have a cent more. Behind him, in line, stood another man, tall, composed, dressed in a crisp suit that looked out of place in a rundown neighborhood store at midnight. His name was Alexander Hayes, a CEO known in business circles for building empires but also for living in a fortress of loneliness. He had everything money could buy: penthouse apartments, luxury cars, global influence, yet he carried a silent base inside him that wealth couldn't fill. Alexander had stopped by the store only to grab a bottle of water, but something about the man in front of him caught his attention. The way Daniel's hands trembled as he reached into his wallet, the way his eyes, tired, sunken, but full of determination, lingered on the pack of diapers. The cashier scanned the item. $8.99, she said flatly. Daniel froze. His heart sank. He had miscalculated. He opened his wallet anyway, pulling out the dollar bill, his voice trembling. "I only have this. Please, is there any way? I just need the diapers. My baby, she doesn't have any left." The cashier frowned, ready to shake her head. Daniel's face flushed with shame. People had already judged him enough: neighbors whispering, co-workers looking down at him, strangers assuming he was irresponsible. But in that moment, none of it mattered. All he cared about was his little girl at home, probably stirring awake, hungry and needing comfort. Just as the silence stretched unbearably, a calm, steady voice broke through. "I'll take them all," the man behind him said. Daniel turned, confused. The stranger in the suit stepped forward, pulling out a platinum card. His tone was firm, yet gentle. "Ring up every size of diapers you have in this store. Formula, wipes, baby food, everything. Put it on my bill." The cashier's eyes widened. "Sir, that's everything," Alexander repeated. Daniel blinked, stunned. His throat tightened. "I don't understand. Why would you?" Alexander looked at him for the first time, and in Daniel's weary face he saw something. He recognized the look of a man fighting a silent war for someone he loved. "Because," Alexander said quietly, "I know what it's like to lose everything, and to wish anyone would notice before it's too late." That night changed everything. Alexander didn't just pay for the groceries. He asked about Daniel's life. At first, Daniel resisted. He didn't like pity. But Alexander wasn't offering pity, he was offering respect. Slowly, Daniel opened up about losing his wife, about struggling with 2 jobs, about barely making rent and never asking for help. Something in Alexander's heart cracked open. He had all the riches in the world, but he had no one waiting for him at home. No small hand reaching for him. No one calling him dad. He had buried himself in boardrooms and contracts, thinking success would replace love. But standing in front of this struggling father, he realized money was nothing without someone to share it with. Over the next few weeks, Alexander kept in touch. He didn't throw charity at Daniel, he gave him opportunity. He offered him a stable job at his company, one that paid fairly and respected his need to be present for his daughter. At first, Daniel hesitated, afraid of being someone's charity case. But Alexander looked him in the eye and said, "You're not a charity. You're a man who refuses to quit on his child. That's the kind of strength I want in my company." Daniel accepted. For the first time in years, he could breathe. He could buy food without counting coins. He could look at his daughter and know she was safe. Slowly, his confidence returned, and with it, his hope. Alexander, too, began to change. He visited Daniel's small apartment sometimes, bringing toys or groceries. But what he really found was something money had never given him: family. Daniel's baby girl, her name was Lily, would giggle and reach out to him, tugging at his tie, smudging his expensive suits with sticky fingers. And Alexander would laugh, truly laugh. For the first time in years, neighbors began to notice the lonely CEO, who once kept walls round his life, now walked through the neighborhood with a toddler in his arms, smiling like a different man. And Daniel, once bowed by hardship, now stood tall beside him. But life wasn't without tests. A few months later, Daniel's old debts came knocking, medical bills from his late wife's hospital stay that he had never been able to pay. Collectors threatened legal action. The stress nearly broke him again. When Alexander found out, Daniel begged him not to intervene. "I don't want handouts," he said firmly. Alexander placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then don't think of it as a handout. Think of it as an investment in a man who already inspires me more than any boardroom ever did." Together, they faced the storm. Alexander guided Daniel through financial planning, even helped him set up a small side business doing architectural drafts, reviving the dream Daniel once abandoned. Slowly, debt turned into stability, and stability turned into growth. Years passed. Daniel's daughter grew up surrounded not only by the love of her father, but also by the quiet strength of the man who had stepped into their lives that night in the store. She called Alexander Uncle Alex at first, but over time the bond deepened into something much more. One evening, as the three of them sat on a park bench watching the sunset, Lily, now a curious little girl, looked at Alexander and asked innocently, "Why don't you stay with us all the time? Families should live together." Alexander's heart swelled. He glanced at Daniel, who smiled softly. In that moment, without needing words, they both knew what she was asking. And perhaps, deep down, it was what Alexander had always longed. For the story of a broke single dad and a lonely CEO didn't end at a checkout counter. It grew into a story of friendship, family, and redemption. Two men from opposite worlds, one stripped of everything, the other drowning in excess, found what they needed most in each other's lives: meaning. And it all began with a single dollar, a pack of diapers, and the courage of one man to care, and another man to notice. Message for viewers: sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can rewrite the entire story of someone's life. True wealth isn't measured by the money in your account, but by the lives you touch, the love you share, and the family you build, whether by blood or by choice.